Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying the Learning at Tutorials. All of you must have seen the scrap of metal lying in your backyard, or if I talk about the battery in your phone. Now the one thing that is common between these two is redox reaction. Now you must be wondering, what is redox reaction? Well, redox reaction is nothing but a reaction in which oxidation and reduction occur simultaneously. Now, let me refresh your memory on oxidation and reduction. So, if I talk about oxidation, oxidation is defined as addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen from a compound. Now, where do you think this definition came from? Well, scientists use this definition to describe various reactions of the occurrence of oxides of metals. For example, if I talk about aluminium, where aluminium reacts with oxygen to form aluminium oxide, and if I talk about iron, which reacts with oxygen to form iron oxide. So as you can see, in both of these reactions, the oxygen is reacting with elements and forming oxides. That's why it's called oxidation. Now apart from this, we can look at one more reaction, that is combustion of hydrocarbon, where we have methane reacting with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. Now if you notice carefully, you will see that carbon is losing hydrogen, and this reaction is oxidation of carbon. So you can see that even the removal of hydrogen can also lead to the oxidation reaction. Now, when scientists looked at various reactions of magnesium with sulfur, fluorine and chlorine, they saw that oxidation occurs even in these reactions. So they wondered whether the oxidation reaction is only about addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. And they realized that oxidation is also addition of electronegative atoms such as fluorine, chlorine and sulfur. So did they stop only at that? Well, let's look at one more reaction. Now, in this reaction, you can see K4FeCN6 is reacting with H2O2 to form K3FeCN6 and KOH. If you notice carefully, K4FeCN6 is losing K+. Now scientists saw that this reaction is also oxidation reaction. And what is happening here? K4FeCN6 is losing an electropositive element. Hence, scientists realized that they have to extend the definition of oxidation to loss of electropositive element as well. Hence, finally, they realized that definition of oxidation should be addition of oxygen, removal of hydrogen, addition of electronegative element, and removal of electropositive element. Now, what do you think will happen to the definition of reduction? Well, let's see. Now, just the way the definition of oxidation was extended, similarly, the definition of reduction was extended. And what was that? Well, reduction is addition of hydrogen, removal of oxygen, addition of electropositive element, or removal of electronegative element. Now let's look at example of each of these cases one by one. So here we have the first reaction, where we have mercuric oxide and it is converting into mercury and oxygen on heating. Now here oxygen is being removed from mercury, therefore it is a reduction reaction. Now here we have FeCl3 reacting with hydrogen to form FeCl2 plus HCl. Now if you notice, the chlorine is being removed from FeCl3. Now since this is removal of electronegative element, this is a reduction reaction. Now let's look at one more reaction, that is reaction of ethene with hydrogen to form ethane. Now if you notice, here also there is an addition of hydrogen to alkene, and this is a reduction reaction. Now let's look at one more reaction. Now in this reaction, HgCl2 is reacting with SnCl2 to form Hg2Cl2 and SnCl4. Now what is happening here? Well, if you notice, in HgCl2, it has become Hg2Cl2. Hence, this is an addition of electropositive element Hg. Now we can say that this is also a reduction reaction. Now it is very clearly evident that this reaction is a reduction reaction. But if you notice carefully, chlorine is being added to SnCl2 and it is becoming SnCl4. And what is that? Well, addition of electronegative element to SnCl2, which is oxidation. So as you can see, in this reaction, oxidation and reduction is happening simultaneously. And not only in this reaction, in any reaction, oxidation and reduction happen simultaneously. Hence, all of these reactions are called redox reactions. Well, looks like you have understood everything so far. So let's see if you can apply your concept to identify which species is getting oxidized and which species is getting reduced in this reaction, where we have H2S reacting with chlorine to form sulfur and HCl. Now, if you notice very carefully, hydrogen is being removed from H2S. That means that H2S is getting oxidized to sulfur. And if you notice chlorine, hydrogen is being added to chlorine. And what is addition of hydrogen? Well, it is reduction. Therefore, we can say that chlorine is being reduced to HCl. Now, let's look at one more reaction. So here we have Fe3O4 reacting with aluminium to form iron and Al2O3. So can you guess which one is getting oxidized and which one is getting reduced here? Well, if you notice carefully, Fe3O4 is losing oxygen and forming iron. Hence, Fe3O4 is reduced because of loss of oxygen, whereas on the other hand, aluminium is getting oxidized. And why? Well, because aluminium is gaining oxygen and forming Al2O3. Now, let's look at one more reaction where we have sodium reacting with hydrogen to form sodium hydride. Now, in this reaction, to identify who is getting oxidized and who is getting reduced, we have to change our approach completely. Now, among sodium and hydrogen, who is more electropositive? Well, that is sodium. Now, if you look at hydrogen, now what is happening here? Sodium is being added to hydrogen and leading to the formation of NaH. And what is that? Addition of electropositive element. Hence, we can say that hydrogen is being reduced to sodium hydride. If hydrogen is getting reduced, then who's getting oxidized here? Well, someone must be getting oxidized here. And who else is there? Well, it is sodium. So since hydrogen is getting reduced, it must be sodium which is getting oxidized here. Well guys, I hope you have understood everything so far that we learnt about oxidation and reduction. And I hope you will be able to identify in any reaction which species is getting oxidized and which species is getting reduced. Well, that's all for today. Let's summarize all things that we have learned today. Oxidation is defined as the addition of oxygen or addition of electronegative element to a substance, or removal of hydrogen or removal of electropositive element from a substance. Reduction is removal of oxygen or removal of electronegative element from a substance, or it is addition of hydrogen or addition of electropositive element to a substance.